I give this presentation now, last year already also, but now modified since we have the new law in effect. So I'm bringing also some updates, what was the impact maybe since the new cannabis law on April 1st. I'm originally a medical doctor, as you see, co-founder of Blumel Group, and from the get-go, we had the focus to really have the ability to cover the whole patient journey, which, as you know, has many steps, and I'll get into that. And today, in the brief time that we have, I want to kind of focus on two parts. One part is the telemedicine platform, that is Algea Care. And I'm going to give you some insights, especially if coming from outside of Germany. I think it's crucial to have a better understanding and a real life understanding of what is the legal situation, what's the maybe insurance or reimbursement situation, some data-driven insights, and then in the second part or last third, probably I'm going to give a little bit focus on Blumel Group itself, because it has also cannabis specialized pharmacy platform in there, and from our learnings that is crucial to actually have a good patient experience, because if you leave patients alone with a prescription, that's just not going to work out and will actually lead to inferior treatment outcome. So very briefly, if you're in the German cannabis sector, I think this will be a little bit boring to you, but I think for outside it's important. Quick look back on where we come from. As Lisa obviously also knows, she's been fighting for this for a long time. There was medical cannabis in Germany before 2017, but in 2017, that was really the point where an official law was passed to say, okay, now, in theory, every doctor, at least if they studied, medicine on humans, can, in theory, treat with medical cannabis. That was a big step. Because there was also a big law within Europe, and so I think Germany really took a leading position here, which is rare for Germany from my personal experience as a German inhabitant. So on paper now, doctors could treat, but as always in laws, and I think you have to improve these over time, there were some limitations that we've learned to accept over time. So one was there was no official catalog for what diseases can doctors treat. That is at one perspective probably you need some support, because does that mean I can treat anything with cannabis? On the other hand, it gave a lot of freedom to doctors because it meant we don't know yet where you should apply medical cannabis. We want to learn from the treatments. We want to learn from patients and doctors. What was written in law was three main criteria. It had to be a chronic condition, but this wasn't specified. So I think from a medical perspective, you would say after 6 months, 3 to 6 months, something, if it's still there, it's chronic. It needs to be a severe disease. Again, that means you need to ask the patient, how does that impact your daily life? It's not a fully classified variable. Second, and this is a big thing between being able as a doctor to prescribe cannabis and for a patient getting reimbursement for the statutory health insurances. So those are two very different things. And the second point here means, and that is a big one for the insurances, that other forms of treatment and medication must be exhausted. Again, no catalog, so that leaves some room for interpretation. Does that mean a patient has to undergo every medication there is, even if it's not fully approved yet? Does that mean he or she has to undergo all surgeries? So that was not specified in law. I think it's also a hard question to ask. And that's why I think there's still a lot of, let's call it interaction or negotiation between doctors, patients, insurances, even pharmacists. And the last one, I think there was an interesting point to put up in the law that there should be a realistic outlook for improvement of symptoms. I think that's the basic underlying motivation for any doctor to prescribe. What has changed since the new law, the cannabis law, that's CanG, just in German cannabis law, a big thing happened was that medical cannabis is not a narcotic anymore, which has a dramatic impact, especially on the paperwork, because it used to be narcotic prescriptions. There was no digital way for that to really happen. But it also has an impact on the ability of doctors to treat patients, because in general, I think the entry barrier to treatment has come down, but there's no official wording on this. Again, no official catalog. It's kind of from the experience of doctors, patients, and I think patient support groups. As I said, there's two different aspects. So one is legal as a doctor. So theoretically, me as a doctor, what could I do? Can I treat people with medical cannabis? The second part is especially if you have statutory health insurance, general health insurance, which about 90% of people in Germany do. The reimbursement pathway is and remains complicated, hasn't changed that much. What it means is if you're a local doctor with your local certification, like your family doctor, PCP, you need to file a formal request, a formal application before you actually treat the patient. There's many things to fill out. It can be multiple pages. Maybe you even have to fill in current literature from the scientific view. So again, a lot of work with doctors, and I think that's one of the big reasons why local doctors or doctors going through the reinsurance pathway often shy away from medical cannabis and just in general say, I don't treat with it. And I understand them in a way, because it is, compared to your normal patient, where you maybe have a few minutes in your daily practice, this will be way more paperwork, and you will have also the expectance from the patients, hoping that this will work out. So it's not an official number, but our estimation is, and we've seen that from others also quoted, that only about 2% of doctors in Germany have ever treated a patient just once with medical cannabis. And there's another reason there why that is the case, because even if you file an application, it may be rejected, and that number has, from what I hear, has been pretty steady. So 40% rejected, and that can also go in repeated ways. So it's not just this one-time decision, but if it gets rejected, your patient obviously says, hey, can we maybe try again? And maybe they mentioned this, maybe we can add some more. Then you will need to invest more time. Another reason why, from what I see, many doctors in Germany shying away from treating with medical cannabis itself, which is a shame, but just part of the insurance pathway. There were some changes in the last year where, in very severe cases, so even patients close to dying, for example, or hospitalized, it can be quicker. But in general, there was no big change over now more than 6 years. And also with the new cannabis law, although it has a medical cannabis aspect in it, that really didn't have an impact so far. And from what I'm hearing also from the specific news sites and others, I don't think it had a big impact on the reimbursement pathway. Of course, the alternative is to either have private insurance, which tends to be more lenient with it, or be an out-of-pocket payer. And I think there the law had a big impact because the costs have come dramatically down, both for treatment, but also for the medication at the pharmacy. And I'll show you a live screenshot at the end. Nevertheless, all these variables mean we don't know the actual number of patients. There's estimates, and I would also estimate now maybe more. There's more than maybe 200,000 cannabis patients in Germany, but nevertheless, still the number is way too low, because if you look at the medical potential of it, and I think you've heard that also throughout the day, the number that should be medical cannabis patients, because they will have a better therapy and less side effects, should be in the millions. And you see, obviously, also agenda from the insurance companies. So I personally also sat with some even CEOs of insurance companies who personally told me they don't see any reason to change anything with this. So we just kind of stopped, spent a lot of time there. But I think it's kind of, as in chess, not a stalemate, but the kind of made situation where just no one can really move. But you see, this was you see in Germany, it means the hype is over, was the exclamation of BARMER, one of the leading statutory health insurances. So they're actively trying to, have doctors and patients shy away from medical cannabis because they fear the cost associated with it. Very quick overview, just to what we do, so maybe you can take some learnings also away, because what we built in 2020, so we're coming now into our 5th year actually anniversary coming up, was a platform that tried to solve that issue, because there was a lack of doctors specialized in this treatment form. There was demand by patients, and as we learned over time also, you need to think through the whole patient journey, because it's very specialized medicine. So it's different from also what I learned after I finished university, because you need to think all these aspects through, and you need to even think outside of the general what doctors need to think about. So you need to think of, are there specialized pharmacies? How do the patients find them? Because there will be big differences. So it's a complicated treatment form, I would say, at least from a management perspective. So what we did, and we started with many local practices throughout Germany. We started onboarding, cooperating physicians that gave us the freedom to really pick who we wanted to pick. Also knowing that we had to educate them all, because there is just, if you come out of university or even if you finish certain residencies, I don't think cannabis will ever pop up in there, although it has been legal for medical use since 2017. I come from academia originally also, so we started to focus on scientific collaborations also. And now we have, I think, 3 publications peer-reviewed based on Algea Care data, which is very nice, but it also was a long way. And the focus from the beginning was on service, because we knew we had to be staffed basically 7 days a week and go as digital as possible, obviously to scale it also, but because also the demand by patients is, I want access, I want also answers to questions or maybe even problems that I have, basically 7 days a week, even on national holidays in Germany. And so some maybe personal thoughts, we found it early, but became very prepared. So we started accepting patients in September 2020. And I think even in the first month, we had people flying in from Hamburg to Frankfurt, where we only had 1 practice so far. Heavy focus, and that would be also my suggestion to you, on the telemedicine aspect of it, because it makes it more scalable, but it's also, from a medical perspective, better for patients, because for them to leave the house, to go to a doctor, to be in a waiting room with other people around, especially if you're treating people with anxiety or even other comorbidications, is stressful, and you want to take that stress away for them. Obviously accessible still to private insurance and self-payers, which now I think in Germany makes up at least half of patients. Lisa, please correct me if you have other numbers. So if you're from outside of Germany, I think it takes some time to understand the German system, because it looks somewhat maybe easy on the outside, but it's more complicated on the inside. Happy to say that I don't have the really up-to-date numbers, but definitely more than 30,000 patients treated. And what I like, obviously, the recommendation of colleagues. So we started seeing, although we didn't interact with them, local doctors, local specialists saying, I think this patient would benefit from medical cannabis treatment, but I can't do it myself, I won't do it myself, any other reason. And so referring, although no official referral is necessary because it's online accessible, I think that was kind of the approval that I really liked from colleagues. So, and that's why I'm talking about our platform. Maybe some things you can take away, and some things have also been modified in the meantime. So the patient journey, you need a general platform for people to inform themselves. Obviously, we're also heavily visible on social media. So if anybody tells you you cannot market or present on social media because it's cannabis, I'm here to tell you it works, but you need to find your own way, the own people that you can show there. Because you need to pre-approve patients. So appointment request, they fill out a medical questionnaire. Now we have the, not luxury, but the gift of having a huge database. So we've become pretty good at predicting algorithm-wise. I don't want to say AI, but we're getting there. But algorithm-wise, who would qualify for this, but who would also benefit from this type of treatment. And obviously we're gonna pursue that in the future to give better treatment recommendations also on, because also cannabis is complicated because there's more than 200 strains in the pharmacies. So you need to support, and that's our role, support doctors, support patients, and even also pharmacists. Screening is crucial because you will obviously get a lot of different requests, and also many people who are not fit for medical cannabis. There may be different reasons. I haven't updated this part of the slide yet, but some key criteria in the past, the first 3 months, three ones I already mentioned. It needs to be chronic disease, severe disease. You need to have tried out other medications. That has become easier now with the reclassification, because now from a perspective, medical cannabis used to be on the same level as fentanyl and other narcotic drugs, and now it's on the level of prescription painkillers, so higher dose ibuprofen, antidepressants, etc., which I think if you go to your local doctor, you would also get more easily prescribed for your common or everyday symptoms or diseases. I suggest, especially if starting out, to just from a legal perspective, draw a line when it comes to illicit drug use in the past, or especially conviction. But you will have your own way with local authorities and lawyers. That has been a learning process. It's hard to give the blueprint there. From a medical perspective, I think what's crucial is, because I keep hearing about the risk of, well, the side effects of medical cannabis, but especially when it comes to psychiatric diseases. So we went back on the data, and my personal opinion, and also from our data team, is I haven't seen a study that really showed an increase in rates of psychosis or other severe psychiatric diseases following medical cannabis treatment, not general cannabis consumption, but medical cannabis treatment. And when we went back, we also saw that the number one risk factor for developing psychosis under medical cannabis treatment is a history of prior psychosis. And so that's why you need to screen very carefully there. And I think with those patients, which still may, often not, but may be suitable for treatment, you need to be very careful. But that's the risk factor, but obviously a very rare risk factor also. Cardiovascular disease is also one from a medical perspective. We also, actually with my own dad, following a open heart surgery, we decided against medical cannabis treatment with his cardiologist because he was having severe sleeping issues, but it could have increased his blood pressure, so we decided against. I think, medically speaking, those are two main ones. Then usually used to be always interview on site. We have since then went more and more online, which obviously is also good for patients and also for scaling. You can obviously have a platform for more patients over that. As I mentioned before, telemedicine is key. So I think with video consultations for follow-up, we did that from the beginning. And now it's become really the standard, and also we've introduced follow-up prescriptions. So if somebody's on the right cannabis medication, there's no really need to change the medication, neither the dose or the strains prescribed. Then, as also with your normal doctors, a follow-up prescription is possible. That wasn't possible before, but we've also changed that over time with the law. Medically speaking, there is no catalog for medical cannabis treatment. So yes, the main group will definitely be pain patients, but ranging from lumbar disc herniation to migraine and other types of pain. What you will see is, because it's an ambulatory service, you not seeing in-house patients. I think you will see a difference in diseases treated. You will see more psychiatric diseases, so including ADHD, depression, anxiety, which rarely get hospitalized in my experience. And that's why for our platform, we see definitely less of tic-Tourette syndrome or even multiple sclerosis, although we have those patients, but we see more general pain patients and psychiatric diseases, especially ADHD. I think that makes up about 10 or more % of patients. So big difference, especially if you look at literature or studies, or if you have local clinicians that you're talking to, they will often see in-house patients, but through a telemedicine service, you will see ambulatory patients who are not getting hospitalized, but who also will have the better treatment outcome from my experience. So just kind of apples and bananas there. We're good on time, so I'm going to present a little bit on data from research collaborations. I'm just going to pick one, but we have free published also on PubMed. This is just internal data because there was often the assumption, who's presenting to telemedicine specialized cannabis clinics. This is not from actual treatments, this is just from requests. So this is not who actually ended up being a patient, but it's who registered, filled out the questionnaire, etc. And there's exactly what I told you before. You see a big group of chronic pain patients, very different types. We didn't break it down in this graph, but then you see a huge rate of psychiatric diseases, which in an in-hospitalized cannabis patient you probably rarely would see, but in ambulatory setting, so people who still go to work, have a family, have a private life, but still suffer from the symptoms on a daily basis, there you're starting to see ADHD, migraine is a big one, depression also, and that's why it's not in this presentation, but we also am happy to report that we finished a good study on, a published good study on medical cannabis and depression, which works well as a replacement to antidepressants. And I think looking over to the US, it's crucial to look at this data because what you see in the US often is that in a fully recreational market, people tend to self-medicate, or even, as we heard also earlier from Lisa, I think maybe even in Germany, that doctors tell their patients just skip the paperwork and get cannabis somewhere. I think we have a chance and also a responsibility in Germany to make medical cannabis access very easy, meaning that if you have any medical reason to get cannabis prescribed, it shouldn't be a huge hassle and it shouldn't be super expensive. And it's just from data with University Hospital in Hamburg, looking at treatment response in neuropathic pain, but we have somewhat similar results both for depression and also working on an ADHD study right now. So what you usually see in a specialized medical cannabis treatment, especially in telemedicine aspect, you see a quick response. So this is the follow-up in weeks, and you see a quick response in pain reduction within the first 4 weeks, which I think for any medication is a big success. But it tends to be consistent over time. And what's interesting is that especially pain patients also very frequently suffer from sleeping disorder. And so we also look at the data here in their insomnia score, and you see the same response. So I think that is crucial because doctors often, when I talk to them, I even give sometimes presentations in front of general doctors online, and they often have never treat a patient. They have informed themselves, but they're just afraid that it wouldn't work or it would lead to severe side effects. And that's why we've started to publish scientific data on it, because not only is it efficient, but also if you look here on the lower, you don't see the mouse, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, we have that. Yes. If you look here at the bottom, looking at side effects, no severe side effects observed, but even if you look at your standard medication, if you compare it to this, very low rate of side effects, and those were very mild. I think if you tell any patient who's suffering from chronic pain, hey, side effects could be dry mouth, fatigue, which also you use for better sleeping in the evening, and increased appetite in about 3% of cases, they will happily switch from their existing pain medication, especially if they're on opioid painkillers. So very quick, towards the end, overview of what is Blumel. So Blumel is the group over Algea Care, because we learned, we didn't know fully at the beginning, but we learned over time, okay, we need to be really able to have the full customer journey in there, because otherwise it will not work and it will negatively impact the treatment, unfortunately. So you need to, sorry, the fonts got mixed up when uploading here. You need to kind of think for everybody involved. You need to think for the patient and their pain points. You need to think for the doctors, for the pharmacists, and even for wholesalers, because you also need to go into product development and figure out what would be ideal cannabis strains. And I think you need to bring them all together, because in general, they often have the same pain points. And you need to have one platform. That's exactly what we're building, and also very soon we'll have more in a more centralized manner. And you need to have tech in the background, because what we see often is patients who have had medical cannabis treatment in the past, or they at least tried it with the doctor, and they themselves said, I didn't have a good treatment response, or I had severe side effects. And so they need to be accompanied along the way. They need to have access to specialized pharmacies. It's also going to decrease their cost dramatically, but they also need the support level. And doctors, you cannot ask doctors in a general setup, okay, I have so many questions around this type of treatment. Which pharmacy should I go to? Can you recommend specific strains? And remember, there's more than 200. What about driving a car? I need this and this certificate. So that's why the service level is crucial. And I think it has a positive impact even on the treatment response, which is rare in medicine. Usually as a doctor, you only think about, does this medication work? And if yes, I'm going to prescribe it, and everything after prescription is kind of out of my hands. It's very different in cannabis. And so that's why we're bringing it under one roof, have basically 3 platforms. One is the telemedicine treatment platform, one is the pharmacy marketplace, and I'll show you a snapshot real-time data from today, and also wholesaler integrated, because obviously that the data you're generating, the insights, leads to product development and better access. And so that's where we stand right now with Blumel as an overview. Patient numbers you've seen, appointment numbers also, meaning through the pharmacies that we've partnered with, because you really need to think through that final step, and you need to have everything digitally. And now, thanks to the new law, obviously it had a big impact for us, because now we can also do e-prescriptions. Because in the past, you have to remember, there was basically an overnight courier service throughout Germany. I don't know how many we sent every single day to get paper prescriptions who were then scanned. So it's digital for the patient, but there is a paper prescription in the back from the doctor, scanned, and needs to get to the right pharmacy. So you can just imagine how much work and also cost was associated with this. And that's why now it's really scaling, and which is crucial, the waiting time for patients has come dramatically down, sometimes even to same-day pickup. Patient journey hasn't changed that much, and that's why I'm just going to go over this slide very briefly, but obviously e-prescription is key. With a central agency, we've built our own service, just didn't want to rely on anything that's out there, and also gave us the possibility to work directly with pharmacies and ask them, how should this be done so it works for your system? Because again, I think if you kind of put it in front of them and say, hey, this is how it's going to be, figure it out, it's not going to work. So you need to, again, think for the patient, for the doctors, and for the pharmacist. And so that's kind of the, coming towards the end of this presentation, that's where we kind of came from, I think, before, even before 2017, but also in the early times of 2017, 2018, I think medical cannabis, it was very hard to find a doctor. I have heard from bus tours through Germany. It was a long waiting time. It was still hard to get medical cannabis treatment. It was hard to then find a pharmacy that even had medical cannabis available. And the cost was very high. So we have, in the beginning, we have heard personally, prices of 20, 25 euros per gram for flower. Obviously, there's different types of medications now. When we try to tackle that problem, so founded in 2020, I think it got quicker. It was much easier to find specialized doctors because it was online, and you could just register online. You didn't have to go to any online board or Reddit groups or anything. And the prices in the pharmacies, because suddenly they had an increase in demand for that specific product, so they could also scale, and scale their logistics, came down. So I think we're around 15 euros per gram. And now it's not future anymore. We've actually beat those targets. Time-wise, not in all cases yet, but we're getting towards same day. So you have consultation or form with a doctor, prescribed same day, and through e-prescription sent to a specialized pharmacy same day, and either picked up or shipped, and then usually arrives the next day, or you pick it up same day, and prices have come way down. And I think that was also an intended effect from the politics, because they knew this is a very safe way for cannabis access. It's still prescribed by a doctor, supplied from a pharmacy, pharmaceutical standard, and now we are seeing rapid growth in Germany. I can't share too many numbers, but I can tell you that just in the first month, there was a more than tenfold growth in just registrations and applications for the type of treatment. And I think you may have heard also throughout this day from other businesses seeing a large impact. And so when we say below 10 euros per gram, I'm going to show you a live view. I hope you can, that's large enough. This is just taken from today's snapshot from Grüne Wiese, which is the specialized pharmacy platform. And you see some very often prescribed strains, but you see also below starting sorted by price. So we have now come to below 6 euros. I have seen below 5 euros per gram, which is great for patients. Truly, I think that was a big thing in the past, that it was still considered expensive. And it's also, if you look at it from I'm not a politician, and I'm very anti-politic, but if you are a politician, I think this is how you're beating the illicit market, because you have prices for medical cannabis safe, coming from the pharmacy, still with some oversight by doctors, and it's much cheaper, because I think the illicit market price is still around 10 euros per gram, depending on the neighborhood and area you're in. And so it's also driving people who went that route through illicit market and self-medicate in Germany, and it's giving them an option that is, I think, more convenient, usually even cheaper, and definitely safer for treating their symptoms. Just a quick overview. We are right on time. Thanks for your interest, and happy to answer questions, I think, during the discussion later on.